Hello, Jonathan Rochandor here. I have returned to explain one more camera mode that I forgot about in my previous video. This one is actually quite important and very inimical to gameplay. Now, the four I've already shown you are generally the most important camera modes. However, there's one more called the lock-on camera, which is accessed by default by control left click. As you can see now, no matter how I turn, that enemy ship will always appear, that ship will always appear in the center of my screen. Once he starts moving, he will stay in the center of my screen. In fact, I'll change to this guy. No matter what, he will always be there in that part of the screen. Now the lock-on camera has several advantages. Mostly it allows you to stay focused on one enemy ship, never allowing it to leave your sight, and you can keep yourself positioned for best firing arcs. It also means you'll never lose your initial scan by the enemy flying behind you. And well, in general, it's just a really good camera angle. Of course, this means that you no longer have freedom of movement of your own camera. You are at the mercy of your enemy's ship here. For the time, I'm just going to call him an enemy. This means at times you might lose a visual of your tactical overlay. But as long as you can keep your orientation pretty good, that should not be a problem. If you want to disengage this, you just hit control left click again and it will take you back to where your camera was originally pointed at. Now, I realize I've been explaining a lot of these things about various camera modes and such, but it'd probably be nice to see them used in actual combat.
Changing course.
So, let's head to an enemy sector, and I will give a nice demonstration of combat, utilizing what are to me the two most important camera modes, lock-on and turret mode, as well as give some combat basics while I'm at it.
I suggest checking the star chart, Captain. New missions are
Now,
available.
the lock-on camera
Sir, we're entering an enemy territory.
is best used for small-scale combat.
Enemy station identified in the
So,
vicinity.
for example, we've only got one real enemy threat here, so it's good to use the lock-on. He's in firing range now. Now, we can use either manual fire or fire at will. I much prefer using fire at will.
Hostile target eliminated.
And as you can see, enemy ship destroyed. And that was pretty quick, but then again, that was a nice weak enemy ship. Let's see if we can't find ourselves something a little more challenging. Probably not in this area. If we head over here, we'll definitely find some bigger nasties, so let's go ahead and do that.
Aye, Captain.
There it goes.
Initiating T-drive.
Now we're going to be jumping into hell here. Enemy territories do not like it when you jump straight into their territory. This is just not something you would normally do. Unless you absolutely
We should
had
check
to.
the star chart. New missions are available. Hostiles confirmed in sensor radius.
Okay. Now we got ourselves something a little bit more substantial. Looks like we got ourselves an Equinox and a Perun. Let's get in
Transferring all
close.
available power to engines.
Equalize our energy. So we have equal energy to
Hostiles
engines,
confirmed in
weapons,
sensor radius.
and shield. Okay. Going to go into lock on camera. Now, through the context menu, you can also mark a target ship. This means that any turrets that can will now focus
Fire
that ship,
at will. Manual
and extra
targeting
turrets will
disengaged.
focus other ships. Now, as a heavy class ship, I do not have much maneuverability.
Unfriendly target acquired.
I'm relying mostly on extremely powerful shields, hence my erratic maneuvering. Trying to keep each shield from being hit too much. And trying to keep myself angled so that I've got a lot of turrets hitting the enemy ship. As you can see already, all his shields are dropped, and we've already got ourselves a large combat scenario. This is when you drop your lock-on mode, because you need to keep an eye on
You should
everything.
check the star chart. New missions are available. Target eliminated.
Now, since I have fire at will on, and no marked targets, my turrets have already picked their own targets. I'm going to take on the next closest ship to me. And once again, do the same. Now for me, I have key bound to G marked target, so I can just quickly mark a target with G. Now this is on normal difficulty, so that's why I'm surviving for quite a while. He should be a goner soon.
Enemy target.
Okay.
We've lost shields.
Now I'm about to die. I'm
Starting
going
T-drive sequence.
get out of here. So that's kind of putting everything together for combat. As you can see, it can be hectic, but it's not necessarily too complex. It's mostly about keeping your strongest shields facing the most fire, and focusing down a single enemy while utilizing everything you have at your power. Now during that combat I didn't use any wings, and I don't have mercenaries. I rarely have mercenaries, but I will be covering those in a future tutorial. Now that was combat with
new missions are offered.
A heavy ship. Broadside combat.
Reinitializing shields.
Keep, enemies to the broadside.
Roger that. Commencing automated firing sequence.
Keep as many turrets on the target as possible. And enemies will drop really fast. Let's take a quick look now at what smaller ship combat is like. Let me think. I think we can get those here at Hamilton. Or no, wait, LaGuardia's got them.
New waypoint confirmed.
Actually, to
Rerouting
save
all
time,
power to engines.
I
All
will do
hands,
this.
prepare for T-drive jump.
Now this tutorial is going to be a little bit longer than the previous one, so I'm going to cover a little bit more than just cameras and firing arcs. So I do want to show how to handle various combat scenarios with the various ship types, since each ship type is equipped to handle combat in a different way. I should have got my garage here. Okay. Not much, so I will be buying a gunship for this. Something I needed to do and I can't remember what. Ah yes, perks. Now, the three types of vessels that there are the light vessels, gunship and corvettes, medium-sized vessels, frigates, destroyers and cruisers, and your large vessels, battleships, dreadnoughts, and carriers. Light vessels are mostly dogfighting style ships, and I will be showing those off to you first. Guardia happens to have my favorite Corvette, the Corsair. We'll skip over the gunship since it fights basically like a Corvette. I'll just throw that in my garage. Unequip some of my stuff here so we can throw it on there. Now, the biggest difference between the large ship and the small ship is that most of your combat now will be done from the front. So, and for those of you wondering, the Axis is a very special weapon, one that you cannot normally get. This is one of my mini test files, so I've got a few things that normally you wouldn't have in gameplay. Alright, so we got ourselves a nice little Corvette here. Bring up our tactical overlay. For those of you who don't know how to bring that up, you can find it under the controls menu. Under, let's see here, interface, tactical overlay. I've got it set to B. There's a lot of options in the controls menu. I want to try and do a video on it, but quite frankly there's just too many for me to do such a thing. I highly recommend everyone go through this menu to find all the various controls and make the game as comfortable for yourself as possible. Now, I don't use a gamepad, so I cannot help with gamepad controls. I apologize. So, and you can zoom in and out using the plus and minus key on your number pad. And that's another default. Now, the big difference between this and the Dreadnought is I've got 3 forward-facing turrets and only, you know, 1 turret on either side. Still, I can get the most use if I angle my turrets just right and have all 4 firing right here. But that's difficult. That is, without a doubt, an extremely difficult task. So instead, we are going to try and keep our enemy in front of us as we fight them. Now, the best way to dogfight is first get into firing range and then slow your speed. You want to have enough time to unleash on your enemy,
all weapons on auto mode.
and then you want enough speed to be able to maneuver around enemy fire. Because,
Target eliminated.
as you can see, if you are not,
Shield status critical.
if you
Collapse
don't
is
leave
imminent.
yourself that, you
Our
are going
shields are
to
down.
get hurt.
Defense shield initiated.
Now, one of the bad things about lock-on camera is that it's hard to keep track of where your own front is, as you just saw with me there. But with this little Corvette, I just took down 2 enemy frigates. And, yeah. As I said, basically when you're dogfighting, it's just about trying to stay maneuverable while keeping your enemy in front of you. Let's see here. When you move on to the larger ships, let me just unequip all my stuff here. Into the medium size, which I believe I have some in my garage already. Yep, got a destroyer here. Prowess. A couple of them actually. Things get a little different in combat. So I was going to transfer over to this prowess because it seems to already have some stuff equipped on it. Oh my, warlocks. All the warlocks. Now you'll probably notice I've still got a lot of front-mounted turrets. Go ahead and get ourselves at a good angle here. And I can bring all 5 to bear at once in front, just like so. However, just like a larger ship, I can have all 5 brought to bear at once on a broadside, and this distributes the energy much better. Instead of using 5 turrets from one battery in the front here, I'm using 2 from the side and 3 from the front, giving me extended firing time. And when angled properly, you can even get up to 4 turrets firing in the front, or 3 or 4 turrets firing from the front with the 2 on the sides. So in the end, you're still, once you get into the mid-side vessels, you want to try to stay angled and keep your broadside to the enemy. And in fact, here comes someone for demonstration purposes. Now, these ships are not as maneuverable as the other guys, but they are more durable.
Roger that. Commencing automated firing sequence.
Try to take as little damage as possible. Keep your strong shields facing the enemy. And try and keep as many turrets hitting the enemy as possible.
To proceed. We have no more ammo. Captain, shields are collapsing.
Now, I was not prepared to be facing these particular guys. That guy is an inciter. He's a cruiser. I think the other one might be as well.
Target eliminated.
As you can see, by keeping strongest shields facing the enemy,
we've lost shields.
You can keep yourself alive a pretty long time.
Shield reactivation complete.
If you have equipment, feel free to use
Hull
it.
damage reaching critical levels. Critical damage detected. Shield emitters failed.
Now you're probably wondering why I'm not getting help from allied ships here.
Shields back online.
It's mostly because this is LaGuardia, and LaGuardia is friendly with the Directorate. So yeah, as you saw, I just died to 2 cruisers, to be expected. Let's go ahead and reload that save file. And as I showed you earlier in a previous video, the Celestial Dreadnought, my personal favorite ship, is a really good ship for combat, and probably really good for demonstrating how to best use a large ship in combat, because its turrets are just so beautifully placed. Apologize for my extended load times. I don't really plan out these tutorials before I do them, so if I feel a little off the cuff, that's why. If you need clarification on anything, feel free to ask, as always. And right now I apologize for any coughing fits I might have. I'll try to mute myself before that happens. I'm still recovering from pneumonia. I seem to be the perpetually sick individual. But nonetheless, let's hope this load finishes soon and we can continue with our tutorial. Also, I apologize for the abysmal production quality. Usually this sort of thing would be cut from a tutorial video, but
Communications report heavy long-range chatter.
I don't know how to
Munitions
do
are
any of
available.
that. This is all being streamed live, and I'm just taking my highlights and using those for tutorials. So my apologies for the low quality of the content here. So again, let's bring up our tactical overlay. Let's get everything loaded out. Oh, hard drive, why? If you're wondering why this ship is always so unmanned and such, it's because this file was originally used for something else entirely. So, I have explained before, and I did show earlier, I guess, how to best utilize a dreadnought or carrier-sized ship in combat. Keep the broadside facing the enemy. Utilize your strongest shields to their best effect, and always try to keep as many turrets focused on an enemy as possible. If your ship has wings, go ahead and deploy them and let them do their job as well. They will attack marked targets before anything else, so if you have a particular enemy you want taken down, mark them. You can mark enemies either through a hotkey in the controls or middle clicking and going to the mark target button. Let's see. Your primary weapons are going to be your light weapons here. Secondary weapons will fall under your heavy weapons. Mostly because heavy weapons have a recharge time, whereas your light weapons can almost keep a constant stream of fire up. Also keep an eye out for your weapon energy. You don't want to let it run too low. The blue bar on the left of your cursor that I'm moving here is your weapon energy on the primary side that has most turrets facing. And the orange bar on the right of that is the current reload time for the heavy weapon on that side. Let's see, what else is there to cover? I'll be covering the various skills of all the classes in a upcoming video. I will not forget that. And one thing to remember is keep a good supply of various types of equipment. Some that I can highly recommend would be the power pack. This allows you to maintain powers longer because it increases your power recharge rate by 50% for 10 seconds. Oh my. Sorry, my game's a little locked up right now. I mostly blame my computer for this. I probably should not be streaming in high quality. Shield boosters are a must-have in combat. The various type of nano drones for repairs. And the viral torpedoes at this point, I think, for me, I don't use them. They don't serve much of a purpose other than being very nice to sell if you ever get your hands on them for such a thing. Anyways, that's kind of the basics on combat and how to use the lock-on camera mode. Now there is one more camera mode, the free camera. This means that the camera will just follow your cursor around. It's defaulted, I believe, to space. You get much faster camera movement like this. But again, you can't really, it's harder to focus on an enemy like this. So for me personally, I like to where I left click and drag the camera. And use WASD to move and Q and E to roll. So, if you have any specific questions about combat in general, lock-on camera, or any other camera modes, let me know. I will try to give more in-depth analysis of the various ship types, their best ways to be used in combat, as well as explain the various types of wings and their best uses as well. I guess one last thing to go over would be the various weapon types. Once my game comes back to me here. Well, I can actually explain it now. There are 3 primary light weapons and 3 primary heavy weapons. The light weapons are railguns, plasma cannons, and beam weapons. Beam weapons deal energy damage, which are great against enemy shields. Railguns deal high hull damage, which makes them great for when you've weakened your enemy's hull. And plasma weapons are an all-around weapon. They just deal lots of damage to both hull and shields. Not quite as much as either of the other two in their respect, but in general prove to be the better weapon choice for experienced combat pilots. Beam weapons have the added benefit of being wherever you're aiming it will hit, so if you use lock on camera and keep your cursor over the enemy, you are guaranteed to hit that enemy as long as they're in range. Plasma weapons, as you see, have a travel time, and railguns have a slightly faster travel time, meaning you'll have to lead your target. Leading your target can prove difficult, but if you're experienced, you can get the hang of it, or you can just rely on fire at will, which will do a pretty good job of it for you. Fire at will mode, I believe, can be engaged right here, and you can also bind it to a hotkey. Heavy weapons come in much the same variety. Shockwaves are energy weapons. Missiles are the same as railguns, and fusion torpedoes are the same as plasma cannons. Torpedoes or rockets rather, have a quicker reload time than the other weapons, but they also have lower damage in general, and I mean, I don't know really what else to say about them. Fusion torpedoes have fairly good damage, but fairly long reload times. And shockwave weapons just have really large blast radiuses, which means if you're in a group fight, they come really in handy. They are very handy in group fights. Other than that, for the basics of combat, I can't think of anything else to cover, and this tutorial is going to give the game kind of a bad look because of how much it's freezing on me, but I assure you that's not the game. My hard drive is just going nuts from the fact that I am streaming right now. So, again, if you have any questions, feel free to ask on the forums or in the video. I will be more likely to respond on the forums than my YouTube videos because I don't really... This is my first time actually using YouTube to start uploading things. So if you want to reach me, Ryo-chan, the SPG2 engineer on the Steam forums. I'm also just Ryo-chan on the Starpoint Gemini forums. Feel free to ask any questions in the thread in which these videos are posted in, and I hope that this will help players that may be having difficulty getting acclimated to the quirks of the game. As my fighters come back to refuel, I bid you adieu. Have a good one, everybody.